I drive a delivery truck around the city where I live. I mostly make deliveries to businesses all across town, and in some neighboring cities as well. For me, I will often work at night, which has its ups and downs. One of the nice things is there's less traffic to deal with generally, but it also led to one of the scariest moments that I've had on the job. It was nighttime, pretty late, and I had a delivery to a local business that had recently closed for the night. I had delivered there before. It was located in a little bit quieter part of town and was located in a sort of strip mall. But by now, all or most of the businesses were closed over there, so it was a large parking lot with just a few vehicles in it. I would typically just park out front and make the delivery to the front door, seeing as they were closed. This time, I parked out front and then stopped. But before I could get out, I saw this guy come walking up to my driver's door. He motioned for me to go around back and said that they needed the delivery in the back of the building this time. I didn't think much of it and just said okay. So I drove my truck forward, turned it around, and then started going to the back of the building. This strip mall parking lot had a narrow road that went from the side of the building around to the back of it. Back there it was much quieter, had some delivery areas, and bordered a woods. With the fact that some of the businesses there would take deliveries around back, I did not think that it was weird, but I had never had to go around back there when I delivered to that company before. I drove around, and when I got to the back area, it was really dark. There was literally nothing and no one other than some dumpsters. But then there was one SUV that was randomly parked there, and it looked like it was running. I thought it was kind of strange, but I didn't really give it that much thought. I wasn't exactly sure where the business was that I was delivering to, so I was trying to focus on that, because I had never been to that spot before. Plus, they did not have signs in the back for what they were. I slowly drove to where I thought it would be. When I was figuring that out, my cell phone rang. It was the same business that I was delivering to. I answered, and a guy asked me why I left. I told him that I was instructed to deliver around back. He told me no, and asked who told me that. This whole situation was now feeling sketchy to me. I backed up my truck to now move back to the front. When I did, I saw the guy walking around who had told me to go around back. He saw me backing up and signaled for me to stop. I yelled at him saying that I was on the phone with them and they were saying to go to the front. The guy then told me no and to hang up. This did not seem right. I drove out of there and back around the building to the front. A guy who I had seen before when I had delivered there came out of the building from the front door and walked over to me. Then I made the delivery as usual. Meanwhile, the other guy was nowhere in sight. As I was doing the delivery, I saw the SUV that I had seen in the back drive out and leave. It made me think that that could have been a setup. The one guy who had talked to me didn't even work at the business. Maybe he and the guys in the SUV wanted to rob me or something. I don't know for sure, but it's a pretty reasonable guess. After that, I didn't see them again. I delivered a few more times to that business, and nothing like that happened. Looking back, I'm really glad that the owner called me when he did. If not, who knows what could have happened. I recently remembered a really weird and creepy thing that happened back when I was younger many years ago. I was probably about 13 or 14 years old, and I was living at home with my parents. Our house was in this quiet but average neighborhood, and we had a 2-story house. My bedroom was on the second floor towards the front of the house. During this time, I loved playing video games, and I still do. But it was the summertime, so I didn't have school, and I would sometimes just game all night. So one time when I was staying up all night playing video games, I was the only one awake in the house. My parents and sister were long asleep in their rooms. I remember that it was really quiet, but at one point I heard the sound of a louder vehicle moving in the distance down the street. I happened to just be kind of sitting by the window anyways, so I paused my game and looked out. When I did, I saw just the front part of a semi-truck coming down our street at a slow rate of speed. So it was just the tractor and no trailer. The road curves, so I saw it turning the corner and then going on the straightaway that our house was on. My bedroom light was off and my window was mostly covered, but I could see pretty well. The truck had no trailer, but it still made a much louder noise than the average car. I watched it slowly drive down the street and towards our house. I had never seen a truck like this on our street before. I wasn't sure if someone who lived here drove a truck or what, but it was unusual, so for that reason I continued to watch it. The truck seemed to only go slower as it approached our house. Then when it got to about even with the front yard, it surprisingly stopped. I got a tad bit nervous because this was really weird. I could not see at all who was driving. Then the truck started to reverse. It backed up very slowly and pulled over to the side of the street. Now, it was not directly in front of our house, but it was on the side of the road and between our house and the next door neighbors, and it was on our side of the street. I didn't think that the neighbors had a truck or anything like that, but maybe it was someone that they knew or something. After the truck stopped, it just sat there for over a minute. Nobody got out of it in that time. I thought that it might just be a guy driving a truck who was looking for a place to sleep. However, after maybe another minute or so, I saw the door open. When it did, a man stepped out. I didn't recognize him. I also really didn't see him that well, as it was very dark out, and from my angle being up, I couldn't really see his face. So the man then started walking into the grass and then into our yard. I kept watching, and my heart was now racing. The man walked right up to the house and then stopped at a window. He then appeared to look inside. I was pretty much shocked and didn't know what to do. The man looked through the window with his hands up against it for like 30 seconds probably. I thought that he was going to break in. But then the man backed up and moved away from the window. He then walked back through the yard and returned to his truck. Then he got inside, and probably 30 seconds later, he drove away. I kept watching the street for a while, but he didn't come back. The whole thing left me very confused. But after that night, I never saw him again. I'm still not sure what to make of it. Maybe he was thinking about breaking in or something like that. But why would he drive there in a semi-tractor like that? It seemed really weird. I'm a truck driver and drive semis all over the country. I'm still fairly new to the job, but I have already had a really creepy experience. This took place several months ago. It was nighttime, but not that late yet. I was on the highway and had been driving for a while. The roads were not bad, but there was a decent amount of cars on them. I use a CB radio while driving like other truckers, so I've talked to the other drivers on the road before. On this night, the highway was kind of windy, but it was a road I had not been on yet, so I was not familiar with it. As I was making my way, I heard someone mention me over the CB radio. I was not sure as to who it was. I didn't recognize them, but I answered it. When I did, a man told me that up ahead on the road there had been a crash, and it looked like the road was going to be blocked for a while. He said that he advised me to take the next exit if there was one up ahead. Then I could find a way around the spot and then get back on the highway, because they would not be moving anytime soon. I responded and told him thanks for the heads up. I could not see that far up the road, but it was apparently a ways up, and also the road had curves in it. My map was not showing a slowdown, but I figured that might be because it had just happened. So I looked to the right, and hoped that there would be an exit before this crash. And very shortly after that, I saw one. So without hesitation, I took it. When I pulled off the highway, I saw that there was a very quiet-looking road, and that was it. There were no visible gas stations or rest stops or anything, not even houses. It was just road and wild land. I was hoping to find a road on the left of this one because that was the direction that I needed to go, or I was at least hoping that this road would curve to the left, but it didn't look like it was going to. When I had made it maybe a quarter of a mile down the road, I had not seen any other connecting roads yet, but I saw something else. There were several men who walked out a ways in front of me from the side of the road. They were now standing in the center of it. I had not seen them until they walked right out into the road because it was so dark over there, but these guys just walked up and started blocking the way. I obviously had to slow down, and I had no idea what was going on. As I continued to slow, the guys just looked at me. This was a bad situation. When I had finally come to a stop, one of the guys came up to my driver's door. I opened the window a little bit and looked down at him. The guy told me to get out, and I asked why. He did not tell me why, but he just told me to get out again. The other guys were just standing there. I asked the guy who he was, but he didn't answer me. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't just turn the truck around. It was too large. I decided to just take my chances and drive forward. I hit the gas, and my truck slowly started to move. As I went forward, I got lucky as the men jumped out of my way so I didn't hit them. I kept driving down the street, and I called the cops eventually and reported what had happened. Then I turned on another road which had a spot that I could turn around on. After I was able to go back, the men were not at the same spot anymore. Maybe they were just hiding in the woods though, but I merged back onto the highway, and when I went up the road, there was absolutely no crash or anything, not even a little bit of a slowdown. I realized that it might have all been a trap. There had never been a crash or any kind of traffic jam. The guy probably told me to go down that road so that they could stop me and do who knows what. I'm just glad that I got away. I used to work as an overnight shift tow truck driver. It wasn't anything intense, just sitting in a truck most of the night, as the overnight calls for a tow were fairly scarce. When you were a driver on the overnight shift, you could either stay awake the whole time or catch sleep in your vehicle, as long as you kept your radio at a high volume to wake you up if a call did come in. Most nights, I'd park near the front gate and nap in the truck. One night was no different, as I reclined my seat, set an alarm on my phone, and passed out pretty quickly. At some point in the night, I woke up, and I didn't know why. The radio was silent, my phone had no notifications, and everything looked normal. I sat up for a second, listened, didn't hear anything, and then laid back down. I figured it was just one of those random wake-ups you get sometimes. The next time I woke up, it was morning. My alarm was going off, and the sky was starting to get light. When I stepped out of the truck, I noticed dirt had been smeared along the side doors. At first, I thought it was just from the previous day, but then I saw the marks on the windows. They were handprints. There were several handprints along the glass, on the driver's side, passenger side, and even on the back window. They were not my handprints, and I never touched the glass like that, so I stood there trying to make sense of it when one of the day shift guys pulled in. He parked, got out, and looked at me for a second like he was waiting for me to say something. I asked him if he knew what happened to my truck. He hesitated, then asked, "You don't remember?" I told him no. He said he'd come in at around 2:30 in the morning to grab his wedding ring he had left in the office because his wife was angry, and as he drove in, his headlights hit my truck. He thought that I was awake at first because someone was standing right up against the driver's side window. He said the person had both hands on the glass, leaning in like they were trying to see inside. He slowed down, thinking maybe it was me talking to someone, but then the person turned and walked away very fast, heading along the fence line before disappearing into the darkness. What bothered me wasn't just that someone had been that close. It was how long they might have been there, and what would they have done if my coworker's headlights hadn't lit up the lot. After that, I stopped sleeping in my truck. If I needed rest, I stayed inside the small office where the cameras were. At least there I could see what was outside. I'm usually a good sleeper, so the part where I woke up that night for no reason really has me question if it was for no reason at all. I might have woken up when someone was peering through the back or side windows watching me, and I had no idea. This happened sometime around 2010. My friend Carly and I were both 18, and we went to a house party on the other side of town. By the time we left, it was around 2 a.m., and we'd both been drinking, but not enough to feel out of control. We decided to walk back to her place instead of calling anyone. It was about an hour's walk, but we decided that the air and the walking would help us sober up. The route was simple, mostly straight along the main road with streetlights the whole way. Even though it was late, we had done the walk before, and it wasn't a dangerous part of town. For most of the walk, nothing happened. There weren't many cars out, but every now and then one would pass. When we were maybe 20 minutes from her house, I heard a semi-truck coming up behind us. That wasn't unusual for that road, and it passed us slowly, louder than everything else had been all night. Right after it passed, something changed. It's hard to explain, but one second I felt normal and a little tipsy, and the next I felt completely clear-headed and alert in a way that didn't match the situation. My chest tightened, and I had this strong feeling that we shouldn't be there anymore. I didn't know why I felt like that. The semi-truck had continued down the road past us, and nobody else was around, but I couldn't shake it. I kept looking back down the road, expecting to see something. Carly noticed I got quiet and asked what was wrong. I told her we should get off the main road. Up ahead there was a small side street which wasn't connected in a way where cars could turn on it directly from where we were walking, but there was a break in the sidewalk where we could cut over. I told her that we should head for that side of the street because something didn't feel right. That was when we saw the headlights of that same semi coming towards us. Somewhere ahead it had turned around, and it was coming back towards us on our side of the road now. It slowed as it got closer, but we had reached the side street and sort of jogged towards it as the semi slowed down. We turned back and saw that it stopped in the middle of the road, and the driver's door was opening as the driver, who was a man, came down to the ground of the street. That's when our jog turned into a sprint, as we made some progress about half a block down the side street before turning around and checking what the driver was doing. He had made his way out of the street across the sidewalk, and he was standing at the start of the sidewalk for the side street. It looked like he was going to call out to us or something, but he must have weighed his options and didn't want to leave his truck for too long in the middle of the street. He ended up turning around and getting back into his truck and driving away without chasing us any farther. That moment when the truck passed us the first time, there was no obvious reason to be afraid, yet somehow I knew, before anything had even started, that we needed to leave. I've had scarier things happen since then, but that's the only time I've ever felt something kind of like a warning, like something flipped a switch in my head and told me very clearly to run. I drive a refrigerated truck and deliver food and meals to different schools. My shift starts at 3 a.m. every day, as I have a lot of stops, and the food needs to be there at a certain time so it can be prepped or heated on time for the kids. One of my routes goes up to a small school on a hill outside of a village. The school itself sits off the road, and there are a few houses nearby, but not close enough to provide any light. I always get there around 4 a.m. There are no streetlights out there, so it's just my headlights out there as far as the source of light. I usually leave the engine running, so the beams hit the wall near the delivery door. Everything outside that cone of light is just black. That morning started like any other, as I parked, unloaded the crates, stacked them inside the side entrance, signed the sheet, and then headed back out. When I got back to the van, I realized that I needed to take a leak before the next stop. I stepped behind my vehicle near this area of tall grass and went down the mountainside for a while. Out there it's darker than you'd expect, and I was facing downhill while I stood there, looking out over the faint lights of the town miles away. You could see the sky clearly too, so I was watching the sky as I was peeing. As I was wrapping up, I lowered my head back down to my normal sight line. A figure moved across those distant town's lights, in front of me by less than 50 feet, as a Head and Shoulders had blocked the town's lights briefly. It pretty clearly looked like a Head and Shoulders, but I wasn't 100% sure, as I was hoping that it was something else. I wouldn't have been able to hear any footsteps or noises of the person walking around because of the truck's engine idling. I finished up quickly and started moving along the side of the truck, wanting to get back inside fast, heading for the driver's door. I didn't want to turn my back to whatever I thought I saw, but I also could barely see a few feet in front of me in that direction. I got in the truck, shut the door, and locked it right away. I shifted into gear and started to pull forward. As I did, I checked the side mirror, and once again saw a human figure near the back of my truck, slightly illuminated by my taillights. It confirmed I didn't imagine it. There was someone out there at 4 a.m. in complete darkness, pitch black, walking there for some reason. They had just passed a little bit in front of me initially, and I'm sure that they could see me clearly with the nose of the truck and the headlights pointed at the wall behind me. For some reason, this person followed me up from the grassy area all the way to the back of my truck, and peeked out at me for whatever reason as I got into my truck. I can't imagine a sane reason for anyone to do that. The holidays are coming up, so I don't have to deliver to that school for a few weeks, but I'm starting to dread every visit I must make there in the future. I used to drive a semi-truck years ago, and it was a job that I had for a while. I still drive trucks, but not semis, and it's a completely different schedule for me now. But anyways, probably my scariest memory from driving a semi took place in my last year on the job. It was nighttime, and I was driving on the highway. I don't even remember what state I was in, but it was pretty late at night, and I would be pulling off to get some sleep soon. There were a number of truck stops on this highway, but by now it was getting close to midnight. I knew where I was planning to stop for the night, and it was maybe 30 minutes to an hour up the road. By this point, there were not many other vehicles out at all. As I drove in the right lane, I was going around the speed limit of 70 miles per hour. I remember that a car appeared behind me, went into the left lane, and then passed me. It then went in front of me to the right lane. But after going in front of me, the car then started to slow down a little bit. If I was going 70, this car was probably now going like 68. I realized that I was slowly gaining on him, and I was going the complete same speed on cruise control. This annoyed me slightly as I got closer and closer to the car, because I had not changed my speed, but he slowed down. I was wondering if the car would realize that I was gaining on him and speed up, but it did not. So then I switched lanes to go around him. I sped up, past the car, and then went back into the right lane when I was by. However, moments later, the car sped up and went into the left lane to get around me. This person must have realized that they had slowed down too much. So very quickly this time, the car passed me going much faster. It went a good ways ahead and then changed lanes when it was pretty far in front of me. I figured this guy was going to go faster this time and not let the same thing occur. At first he was going at a good speed and way up the road, but then I started to slowly gain on him once more. This was really annoying. I was pretty sure that it was all on accident, because why would somebody intentionally do something like this? It was a pretty absent-minded thing to do. When I got like right up to the guy's bumper, after having not changed my speed at all, I had to go around him again. So I did. This must have really made the guy mad. I don't know if he thought that I was trying to race him, or if he was trying to play games with me, because he started speeding up when I was in the left lane to pass him. I just said, okay then, and I moved back over to the right when he was in front. Then he did something crazy. He went into the left lane and started slowing down. I was still maintaining the same speed and in the right lane. Then I started to pass him because he slowed down so much, and I didn't know what he was doing. But then he sped up and then cut right in front of me. He left hardly any space. I couldn't just slam on my brakes and stop, so I nearly hit him. He went a little faster, but was driving really close to me. When he did this, I honked at him, as this was seeming to become a road rage incident. I didn't bother to switch lanes. I knew that the truck stop I was planning to go to was coming up just ahead, so I kept driving with the guy right in front of me. He went a little farther ahead, but not by much. Then when we got to the exit, I pulled off at the very last second to the truck stop. I saw the car slam on his brakes, but it was too late and he missed the exit. I didn't know what he was trying to do now, but I was glad to get away from him. So I pulled in and parked my truck for the night. Then I went in the building for a short time before returning to my truck to go to sleep. I got inside, covered my windows, and went to the back area where my bed was. However, not too long after getting back there, I heard the sound of someone banging on my door. It was very loud and persistent. I did not know who that could be. I got up and went over to the door. Before opening it, I looked out. There I saw some random guy. I didn't know who he was, but then I realized that he must be the driver of that car. He started yelling at me to come out and fight him like a man and stuff like that. I told him to go away. I had no interest in fighting that clown. After his yelling and banging on the door persisted, a few other truckers nearby started yelling at the guy because he was being really annoying. He eventually stopped and yelled at me some more, as well as the others who were annoyed with him. Then he stormed off and left. I could not believe it. The whole thing was his fault because he wasn't paying attention. Driving a truck is a lot harder than driving a little measly car like his, but he didn't seem to realize that.